mentioned 10, 15 years ago won't buy much of anything here today.
And why the millennial generation is starting to give up because they can't afford to get a good job or own a house.
8 million Venezuelans voting for this assembly, saying it's actually less than 3.
It is. And people are going to
March, and we are live, RTD Live Talk. My name is Mike, the host of RTD Live Talk, Detroit's #1 late night YouTube talk show. Looking forward to finding out what's on your mind this evening. As always, I'll give it a second before we get into what tonight's conversation is going to lead into, which is what FedEx just recently came out with, and how they themselves are looking to restructure the company itself by offering buyouts to some of their long-tiered workers there. So that is what it is, but we're going to cover that. And so it's nothing new to you guys because everyone here is in tune. But as always, let's find out what's going on in the chat. Looks like I have Alex and Nick. How you guys doing? I stopped doing business with anyone using them. FedEx is a horrible company with bad service. That's unfortunate. But one thing I took when I saw the article initially, the one thing I took away from it was when you have a corporation that is designed on moving cargo, packages, and just anything that is designed to go from point A to point B around this globe, and when they say that things are slowing down and their business is not going well from a global standpoint. I mean, it'd be one thing if it was just locally here in the United States of America due to Amazon or whatever competitor type of situation. But I would imagine from a macroeconomic standpoint, all the logistic companies that do business around this globe are experiencing some type of slowdown. And it's not by coincidence because it's just been happening for a while, but it's starting to take a toll, as I'm sure, as we're going to get into the article tonight about what FedEx will suggest and propose to, I guess, make themselves more profitable, which, as I've always mentioned before, has to do with some restructuring, basically firing people. So that is what it is. But Darnell Jones, how you doing, my friend? Thanks for tuning in tonight. And so I actually want to get right into the article here. So as I'm looking at my stream here, it says that the live stream is not, it's flashing red as if it's slow or is it lagging behind. So if you are watching in the chat, let me know if everything is on point so that I'm not just talking to myself, and want to make sure you guys we're all on the same page. So give me a thumbs up in the chat if you guys are, if we streaming on time and everything is running smoothly. Please let me know so I can know if I'm way off or where I should be. So I'll wait for any thumbs up. Are they out there? Okay, I got one thumbs up. Can I get two? I got two. Okay, CryptoMonk.com. How you doing? We got R Shack Travels looking good. Okay, sounds good. So I'm gonna get right into the article because I think it's a good. Oh, let me find there we go. It's a good indication of the true story of what's happening. And so I would rather listen to I'm not sure, I think it's the president or one of the executives from FedEx give a true real world explanation to how their business is actually performing, as opposed to our political figures here in this country that'll tell us that we're growing at 3.1% GDP this year, anticipating to go to as Trump promised. He promised 6% GDP. I think it was last year due to his tax cut, but we're nowhere near that. And when they 3-6 months from now, when they readjust to today's figures, it's probably going to be negative or point something another like it was last year. So, Faith, I appreciate that. So I never really do much requesting of hitting that thumb button until I see you, Faith, mention about the button, the thumbs up button. So I appreciate that, Faith. Way to stay on the people's head in the chat for me. Scott Robinson, you're not late, my friend. We're just getting started. But from the night's conversation topic, FedEx. So here's an article I came across, and I thought I would lead off into this evening just because I take FedEx as a more credible source of giving the real world account of what's really happening from a global standpoint, as opposed to what we hear in this country from our government here. And so I'll thumb through a little bit of it, and then I'll actually link it in this chat here, so you guys can go back and take a look at it if you want to dive into a little bit deeper. But when I saw this, I'm like, I definitely got to talk about this because FedEx is an international company. And so, give an idea, just the highlights here, some of the key points. It says FedEx reported declining international revenue. Declining international revenue. So this is just not an isolated event here in this country. This is global as a result of unfavorable exchange rates and the negative effects of trade battles. So the unfavorable exchange rates. And so I wonder, does that have anything to do with the currency war that's been going on since the Great Recession began 10 years ago, when every country decided to boost their trade by devaluing their currency against one another, which has made it very, as you mentioned here, unfavorable exchange rate. So assuming their cost has gone up, where the currency they're receiving aren't really cutting or aren't really cutting it anymore. And it says, and negative effects of trade battles. So it looks like the side effects of this China-U.S. trade tussle is starting to really become an issue because of all this sanctions and whatnot that we've passed on each other. And so trade is slowed down. It says slowing international macroeconomic conditions and weaker global trade growth trends continue. Slowing international macroeconomic conditions. So I wonder, what exactly does what is this? This is the Executive Vice President and the CFO, Alan B. Graff. I wonder, what is he really referring to when he mentions macroeconomic conditions? I'm assuming that's probably a nice way of saying that some countries, not including ours, are probably already in recession. And so because of those conditions there, it makes it unfavorable for them to do business in that country, which puts a hinder on their international revenue. And it says a weaker global growth trend continues as seen in the year-over-year decline. So I would imagine since the Great Recession began in 08-09, it never really ended. It was just papered over and negative interest rates injected. But since that time frame, I would imagine this year-over-year decline is starting to take a toll on this company, as well as many others, I'm sure. It says FedEx reported weaker than expected third quarter earnings and revenue after the closing bell on Tuesday, and cut full year guidance. So they basically say, because of this drop in our revenue, we can no longer project out into the future what we possibly will make, which is not good for shareholders. And so that leads into a little bit more down here, where it talks about the stock. It says shares fell more than 4% in after-hour tradings as of today. And it says, despite a strong U.S. economy, so this is CNBC's spin on this. Despite a strong U.S. economy, FedEx said its international business weakened during the second quarter, especially in Europe. We know Europe is having issues. It says FedEx Express International was down due primarily to higher growth and lower yielding services. So, yeah. So, without going any further, I want to just check in with you guys in the chat. And my question I want to put out there is, what other indicators or what other companies or corporations that you're aware of, apart from the obvious? We know the retail sector is having issues, but are there any other companies that we could use as a credible source of information that does business internationally that will be well worth noting, along with FedEx, that we are really in a global slowdown already, which is basically a recession in a sense? So low blood pressure said Tesla is old news. Very true. And Tesla, even though they got, they send Teslas all over the planet, it's still a somewhat small in comparison to the big three, like this here in Detroit. So I wouldn't say they're quite as large, even though I'm assuming that their numbers are probably large. But yet, once Tesla has a lot of hands on a lot of things. It says, in the Fed issue debt-free treasury notes backed by a fraction of gold. Backed by. And so I like your thinking. I like where you're going with this. But I think we should no longer encourage governments, especially central banks, to use the word backed by. Let's get away from backed by. What I mean by backed by is that the issuing of some type of intermediary type of derivative note type of ordeal that then can be redeemed for. We went through the whole redemption process. That was the first part of last century, and we see how that ended. to where now we're solely in a digital world. And so we were weaned off of sound money and given digital blips on a screen with a little bit of paper. So I'm not a fan of being backed by anything. What I would rather have, of which I think would be a well-worthy cause, and what I'm a fan of, once again, is these little notes right here that have gold actually in them. I'm a fan of these. So never mind backing the note. Put the gold in the note. If you put the gold in the note, then I know we're talking money. Other than that, you're talking about confidence and faith in you redeeming those notes. So I'm gonna leave that alone. And so Philman, thanks for the question. Says, did you read the article about Tesla closing their showroom? Yes. So I saw that. I think I mentioned it on a chat before, but it looks like all their little retail stores inside the malls and all those little stores that I wasn't quite sure of in the first place, because they were more so just testing locations. I was apart from a marketing standpoint, I didn't think it was a good idea anyway, because not too many people, like there's a Tesla location. There was a Tesla location in a mall not far from me, but it's in a suburban area to where, other than that, no one else you couldn't put one in the inner city because no one's going to actually walk in there and think about really buying a Tesla. So you have to put them in certain locations of which the money has to be there. So I don't think you had to go that far to get people with money to buy a Tesla. You could just figure out some other way than having to open up shops and stores and hire people, then fire people. Yeah. Caterpillar. Crypto Monk. I like your thinking. And so Caterpillar, I remember a couple years ago, Caterpillar has been a good indication from a equipment standpoint. So let me type in Caterpillar and see if there's anything recent. Buy names like Caterpillar in the middle of it. Caterpillar. Nothing. Tesla drops and Home Depot disappoints. It says Caterpillar stock should rise in downturn. So here's an article here talking about how cheap Tesla stock is. So this is it says Barron's Caterpillar stock could rise in downturn. Now, I'm not a rocket scientist or, really, I'm not a real, I just say I'm not a smart guy. Just use that for example. But it says Caterpillar stock could rise in downturn. And I'm thinking Caterpillar has been having issues just from a global sales standpoint for several years now, probably close to a decade, ever since the Great Recession. And all of a sudden now, their stock is going to rise in a downturn. Not sure. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, Mike. This is Q from Chicago. How you doing?
1 second, my friend. Let me get some volume on you, and then I'll let you get your rap on. I'm sorry. Say that again. Who's this one more time?
This is Q from Chicago. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Q from Chicago. How you doing, my friend?
Not too bad. Not too bad, man.
What's on your mind this evening?
Hey, man, I just wanted to get your comments on what you think about the criminal charges being filed against Mark Zuckerberg.
The criminal charges filed against Mark Zuckerberg. So, apart from some older things, I'm not familiar with. Is there some recent things that have come about that I'm not ringing a bell right now?
Well, I understand that a lot of people have come to understand that there are a lot of sealed indictments in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these sealed indictments said 50,000, I think, was the last count. One of those sealed indictments against Zuckerberg. Really?
Now, that is a fact, or we're assuming? Has there been evidence to prove that there's a sealed indictment with his name on it, or how'd you come about that?
There is criminal charges that have been filed against Mark Zuckerberg for the theft of U.S. government. Well, let's just say he's selling out our information to other countries, China, Russia, the UK, New Zealand. All of our information has been sold around the world. Okay, now, so that sounds like some deep stuff there. I wasn't quite aware of the details of that. And so what are your thoughts about it? Because if that is true, then definitely Mark Zuckerberg might be in a world of trouble. Would you agree? Mike Zuckerberg is facing treason charges.
Yeah. Now, my only concern would be is that because he's so well connected and interconnected to everything that happens on that in the Hollywood sphere, in the entertainment, in the business, he's a part of our governmental structure. He's been working with the government. So I wouldn't really bank on him having a book thrown at him. So I would say that, as of now, he's probably capable of getting out of it somehow, some way, unless all those indictments are open and everybody goes down and there's no.
Man, I'm gonna tell you right now, there's a lot that's going on, man. I can't even see what's going on, but what's going on and what's been going on to this nation, man, is absolutely a shame.
Yeah.
And Mark Zuckerberg, Google, Apple, Microsoft, all these companies, man, what they've done, bro, and how much information that they've just given away to all these other countries and sold it about us, man. It's absolutely insane. So Mark Zuckerberg, man, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if you see Jack Dorsey. That's why you see the suit against Instagram, I think, going on right now, $250 million lawsuit. Yeah, I mean, you got all this stuff going on, man.
Yeah, I would like to see justice served. And so here's my biggest issue with that. Like, a lot of people talk about corruption here, corruption there, but yet I will never truly believe in true justice until justice starts with revealing and exposing corruption and crime at the height.
True justice will never be served until justice is rendered in the hearts of the people first. If the people don't even know it, because I can't seem them to take personal responsibility for the things that are taking place in their life, i.e. the leaders that they voted for, using instruments of debt. How do we get people to see that, the reason why the country is in the way that it is because of our own personal decisions?
The people's opinion without taking it personal. Like, everyone will put up a barrier based upon their own paradigm to where they won't be receptive to anything that contradicts what they believe, grew up on, or have experienced in their own lives. So I don't foresee it happening no time, my friend. And that's where, from a spiritual standpoint, I fall back and say a variety of things. And so once again, just that call there gave me some great things to ponder on. But I've been missing a chat. I'm not sure what's going on from here. It says, Mike, internet is going in and out. Yeah, so I mentioned that earlier for whatever reason. Not sure why. The health monitors on these on YouTube here is flashing like it's medium. So that means that it will be lagging behind. So I'm not quite sure what I can do about that. And so it looks like I'm lagging as I'm talking to myself now. So it's one of the things where I might have to reboot it, start over, or what. I'm not sure. But let me know that I can do about it directly. Call or worry about getting your weight up. Screw Zuckerface. FDU make it into the NCAA tournament. I have no idea. Good evening, Mike. I'm receiving a lot of buffering as well. Tyrone, man, I apologize. And I think FedEx is a good indication of what's the true nature of this whole global system that we're under from a macroeconomic standpoint, as I mentioned from the article I read. And so I think it's very... It's a great indicator as to what's really going on, if there was any question. And so I also want to get... So I'm not sure what to do about the buffering.